why people decide to live in cities. Basically, is the same approach to why people go to shopping malls, because you can find everything in one single place, so it's convenient. Surprisingly, Kuala Lumpur, to the contrary of what many think, is one of the lowest density major cities or large cities in the world. Seoul is about 600 plus persons per hectare, versus Barcelona, which is a pretty dense city at about 170 people per hectare. But Kuala Lumpur, surprisingly, and I believe that this will come as a shock for many, has only 34 people per hectare on average. You may wonder, so how can this be possible if there are so many towers and skyscrapers everywhere? But the reality is that the density that they contribute, or the population that they contribute to the city, is indeed fairly low, because although you may have towers with 1,000 units, eventually the average household is about 3 people. Something that people may not realize either is that although there are many towers, even in the city center, they are all fairly scattered. So the density that they contribute is not as large as what people may expect. The key matter that answers why the traffic is so bad in KL is a mix of poor road planning that has involved subsequent revisions of something that was decided earlier, and we have ended up in a city with up to 3 layers of flyovers on top of another. On another hand, the fact that most businesses or most corporations, those employing majority of people, are all located within the city center. And that means that at the peak hours, at 8 in the morning and at 6 in the evening, there is a huge flow of people moving in and moving out KLCC, which is a fairly limited area accommodating a very large population of workers. We as architects doing or developing specific pieces of land across the city may not have the power or the capacity to resolve the entire issue in one go. But we have the ability, and it's very important to keep that awareness for architects, to create positive examples of how the city should be. How do we ensure that the greater public is benefited from what we do from our own perspective? So if I elaborate on this, and perhaps I try to use some of the projects that we have done, so it becomes a bit more grounded. I can talk about 3 particular projects. I can talk about Saloma Link, very well known, very celebrated. I can talk as well about our star residences in KLCC, and a project that will be completed by 2023, which is the Oxley Towers. Saloma Link indeed is a seed project for what was meant to be, or is meant to be, the larger redevelopment of Kampong Baru. And I think that it was in the back of our mind to create a link from the historical underdeveloped part of the city of Kampong Baru, but I believe that we were not expecting the popularity and symbolism that eventually Saloma Link has triggered. And a couple of numerical facts: the walking distance from Kampong Baru, Masjid Jamek to KLCC has been reduced to half. What it used to be a 30 minutes walk, a 20 kilometers, 30 minutes walk, has been now reduced to 15 minutes walk. There is another very positive and to a certain degree unexpected outcome, that is that businesses have started to flourish around both ends of the bridge. And we hope that at the Kampong Baru side, this seed will expand and will have a reaction change to spur prosperity through the entire neighborhood. Besides the picturesque pictures that people like to take at the bridge because of the beautiful design or the lighting of the bridge, there is a very much more positive attribute, that is how a very little master planning or architectural gesture, that is a 60 2 meters span bridge can connect two parts of the city that has been traditionally separated by a river and then a highway. This is one of the examples of how master planning can contribute to making more resilient cities. Perhaps one of the examples of how the city could improve and move towards improvement is the discussion that we have often had with DBKL and the different majors in the last 5 years about the importance of the perimeter planting in our developments. That from a first approach, it may signify to many that we contribute to greening our buildings, to creating green rings surrounding our buildings and making them softer perhaps or friendlier perhaps. But the reality comes that we are creating development islands where developments become closed on themselves because of being surrounded by rings of green that do not permit people to go across, to cut across, to walk across. So one of the matters that we have discussed very actively with DBKL, and DBKL seems very positive about it, and I'm not so sure whether they will implement it or they will implement it soon, but they have certainly listened to us. It's about the importance of revisiting, perhaps removing the requirement for these 2 meters perimeter planting around any development, and indeed to emphasize on creating linear streets, linear planting that does not respond to necessarily the parcel that we are developing, but the street instead. And this is one of the many examples of how we try to engage with DBKL to propose how we think that the city could be better as a whole. Generally, when any piece of land is to be surrendered, developers' approach is, okay, so this is now DBKL's piece of land, you will do here what you think that is necessary, but it's not part of my development, so well, you can do as you think. We were extremely lucky in this project, in Star Residences, because our client Symphony Life was very eager to undertaking this part of the surrender land and to convert it into a boulevard that they happen to call the Boulevard of Fame. That's their marketing approach to it. But the important value is that we are contributing to pedestrianize a stretch of the city, and hopefully that will be the seed for future developments along Jalan Yap Kuan Sen to continue and to contribute to making a more walkable city. And it's a much more important transformation, that is that rich nations are not those where the poor can afford driving a car, but those where the rich can afford using public transport. And I think that this is a fundamental change that is yet to happen. I would love to see one day, as I used to see when I was living in Barcelona, that everybody from the top management or executive of a company to the cleaning lady or the cleaning guy of an office space, both of them at 8 in the morning are in the metro going to their workplaces, and there is no social background differences. Everybody relies on the public transport because eventually everybody understands that it's more efficient, that is more responsible, and this shows that their mindset has raised.